Are you feeling the calling to start or grow a business that is so aligned with you and everything that makes up who you are? Do you know that there has to be a way to do this without so much hustle and without chasing the latest shiny object, but you're just not sure how? You can definitely have a dream business that improves, not consumes your life, that allows you to work with soulmate clients while helping you and your family financially and in all ways. You can elevate yourself to be the entrepreneur who has all of her desires. I'm going to show you how on the Elevated Femmes movement. Hi, welcome back to another episode of the Elevated Femmes movement. Today, we're going to talk about running multiple businesses, being a mom. As always, whenever I have a mom on here, I always like to see how they're doing things because I know that if you're listening, you're a mom, you want ideas. I want ideas. There's always ways that we can improve how we run our businesses and our daily lives. So Danielle Mendoza, she is here with me today. She's an entrepreneur. She runs a couple of businesses, and I've connected with her in a community that I'm in, and just another, I feel like this is another testament of how important it is for us as business owners to be out there, meeting other people, making connections, and, elevating one another, which is another big part of why I have this podcast. Is not just, one big thing that I talk about in all my episodes is doing things in a smarter but not harder way. And part of that is also like leveraging the connections that we have. And that's another great thing about podcasting is that you get to make connections with other people. Danielle is also a podcaster and she's had me on her podcast. So this is a little reminder for you listening today to think about, how can I maybe put myself out there a little bit more to make connections? Who is someone who has a similar platform as me, who I can maybe do an interview swap or some kind of live swap with, to kind of, put myself in front of their audience and they can put themselves in front of my audience and help each other. So think about that as you listen today. So Danielle, welcome to the show today. I'm really excited to chat with you. Tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you do. Tell us a little bit about your businesses, and then we'll get started.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me here, Julia. I'm really excited to be chatting with you again. And I love what you said about just stepping out, connecting with your community. And yeah, collaboration is the name of the game. I think networking has gotten such a bad rap because it was for a long time and still sometimes is full of people who are trying to sell stuff to you. And it's not that we don't want each other's businesses to thrive, but there's a way to go about that that's so organic and natural. And that's when we share the stage with one another. So I just love that you brought that up. So my name is Danielle Mendoza, and I'm a business development consultant. I do run two businesses. I have a boutique development consultancy where I help women who are new to business or in their first 1, 2, 3 years of business who are trying to master that business stuff. So oftentimes we come to the table with our zone of genius, our expertise, and we're like, wow, I could really help people using my skills here. And then we get into business and we realize how little we actually know about business itself because our zone of genius is in our expertise and not in the expertise of business necessarily. So as a serial entrepreneur who's started businesses time and time again from when I was very young, it's something that I wouldn't say that I've mastered, but I've got a good handle on it. And so now I help other women who are stepping into the business scene to figure out how can they grow organically? How can they build a business that not only serves their clients, but serves themselves, serves their lives? Because I think the other thing that happens is we get into all the business junk and we end up building these massive, and I say massive, not in the sense of revenue, but in the sense of like time consumption, these massive businesses that just overtake every part of our life. And I couldn't do that when I started my business. I had 2 homeschooling kids. My husband was away working, all this good stuff. And so I had to figure out how could I make my business fit with my life. And I realized that more and more of us need to do that. We need to make our business fit our life and not the other way around. So that's one business. The other business I run is a writing and publishing strategy business where I help women entrepreneurs become published best-selling authors. And the most important part there is we focus on this idea of leveraging your authorship. So whether it's a single author book or a multi-author book, which I publish once a year, we have to think about what are we using this book to do. So first and foremost, it's telling our story to connect with other people. But then what? What are we going to do with our new bestseller status? What are we going to do with the content that we spent good time creating? And how are we going to leverage all of it for greater visibility so we can hopefully drive up the revenue in our own businesses? And I'm a big believer that a book can do that in a really great way, even if you never actually sell a single copy. So you can give your book away for free and still make a six-figure return in your business. It's a really powerful tool to add to your business.
Yes. And I love the really having a strategy behind that, because I feel like it's so typical for people to think, oh, well, I'm going to write a book and I'm going to sell all these books, and that's going to give me the result that I want. That's going to make me the money. That's going to get me the speaking gigs and all that. And usually it doesn't work like that. It's actually usually better to have more of like a back end strategy, which Danielle is your gal for that. So Danielle, tell us a little bit more, because I know that you went through something scary, which is what prompted you to do what you were doing. So can you tell us a little bit more about that experience and how that pushed you, over the edge so that you could be running your businesses now?
Absolutely. So when I was 4 months pregnant with my son and my daughter was about 2 years old, I found out that I had skin cancer, and it was a big shock. Now, it was a curable type of skin cancer. It wasn't this big, scary, like you have 6 months to live kind of diagnosis, but it was something that still made me wake up and realize like my time here is limited. And that's always been true. That's never not been true.
Right.
We're humans, but it was just that time in life. We all have opportunities in life to catalyze this kind of awareness around what am I doing here? Like, what have I actually been doing with my life all these years? And, I was 27, almost 28, and I just felt like I wasn't living out my fullest potential. And I realized that being in business was something I was feeling called to and I had been putting aside. And so I decided to shake up my life and kind of reorder things so that I could create more meaning and connection through my business, and stepped into that opportunity. And then just this past year, that cancer came back and I actually went through another round of treatments. Yeah, I had 4 surgeries in 2022. But it's gone now again. And it was another opportunity to say, okay, how am I showing up in the world? Am I really showing up as authentically as I could be? And the most important thing that came to mind was, am I leaving the legacy that I want to leave behind when I'm gone one day? Because that will happen, whether it's cancer or not. What is the story that others are going to tell about me? What are my kids going to say about their time with me? What are my loved ones and friends going to have to say? What are my clients going to have to say? What about the people who aren't really that close in my life, like my kids and friends and clients, and those who I just sort of interact with here and there? What would they have to say about who I am or who I was to them? And so it gave me this opportunity to really take a look at how I'm interacting with the world, and am I being intentional in that sense and creating an intentional legacy instead of an accidental one?
That's so important. That, I think, is the key. Like, intentional. Are you creating an intentional life? I'm all about building a business that improves our lives. This is kind of like my saying. When I was a fitness coach, I used to say, I help women make fitness improve, not consume their lives. It's not about being in the gym, working out every day for an hour. And same thing, I think we got to this point in the online industry where people just thought like, you have to do more and you have to, if you're not aiming for an 8-figure business, then what are you doing? Right. Like it's about like more money, more work, more this, more that. And it's like, if that's not somebody's like ultimate desire, then that's okay. For somebody, it could be making, $50K a year. That's what would make them super happy. It would relieve a lot of financial stress, whatever. For somebody, maybe it's, 5 million a year, and neither is wrong. It's just about figuring out like what is it that I need? What is it that I want? Right. And yeah, I think like what you said about being intentional, that's exactly it. That's how you like figure out what it is that you want. I think for me also, what I've learned is, because I, switched from one business to another, and I want to ask you about how you're running 2 businesses because I'm very curious. But for me, it was about being more intentional because I felt like I could, impact somebody's life, especially, female entrepreneurs. I worked with female entrepreneurs as a fitness coach. And ultimately, that's what led me to be like, how can I make a bigger impact in their lives? Yes, I'm making an impact in their health, but I feel like sometimes it's one of those things that's like you want to sell somebody what they want and then give them what they need. But a lot of times people are still like, no, I just want this, right? And it's like, no, but your health is so important and it impacts all these other areas. But people are just still like, well, I just want the 6-pack. I just want to lose the 20 pounds. And that's what made me think, okay, well, how is it that I can impact a bigger part of their lives? And it was, okay, their business, right? Because most people, and I'll say this, and people might be like, what? How can you say that? But I feel like for some people, their business is more important than their health. And I see that a lot. But I feel like if I can impact their business and I can remind them like, okay, are you taking care of yourself? Are you sleeping? Are you moving your body? Are you going for walks? That to me was important to do. And doing the work that I'm doing now, like podcasting, is also aligned because I feel like I'm helping them share their voice, share that like soul message that they have. So you're also doing that with people, helping them write their own books, which I think is amazing. And so let's talk a little bit about your publishing company. So has there been over the past few years that you've had your company, whatever amount of time that you've had it, has there been a story that maybe really resonated with you, or maybe a few stories? Do you have any examples of like, what do people like to share in their book? Like how do they like make that connection with their readers?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's stories, right? Stories are what connect us as human beings. Having that opportunity to show a little bit, if I were telling you a story, I'd be showing you my personality, giving you a little bit of my background, helping you see what I've learned and insights that I've gleaned. And then the way that I help women entrepreneurs share their stories, we're also talking about how does that insight and what you've learned and what you've gone through impact the way that you're showing up in the world now? How does it impact how you're serving your clients? And what is that vision for the future that you see? Because I really work with like mission focused entrepreneurs. So we see a bigger picture of impact beyond just let me help my clients do this thing and I'll get some money in return and we're all happy and we go on our way. It's this idea of crafting a better world. That's really at the crux of a lot of it. And in my multi-author book, for instance, there were quite a few stories of women who'd gone through abuse situations and struggled to, first of all, just acknowledge that they deserved better, to acknowledge their own worth, and then struggled to move out of that situation and into a better life. But here they are standing on the other side of all of that. And they can look back and say, I did this hard thing. And to anyone else who's in that situation, you can do it too. And here's the beauty that can come out of it. So often when we go through struggle, we get really hard on ourselves, especially women. We have a lot of shame. We have a lot of fear of people finding out like our dirty laundry and things like that. But when you can share it really openly in a supportive environment, like a book that is set up to celebrate struggle and celebrate what comes out of that, you have the opportunity to showcase to the world that really beautiful things can come out of that. And oftentimes it's those most terrible, dark things that craft the brightest visions for the future. So we're able to lean into the light and say, this is what I see going forward. And this is how I'm showing up differently because I went through this thing. And we're inviting others along into that vision as well.
Yes, I love that. I actually, I think it was this morning, I saw somebody on Instagram, I think some entrepreneur who shared that the way she reframes now when something bad happens in her life is she says to herself, this is going to be great in my book. So instead of being like so upset and staying stuck in like stress and anger or despair, whatever those negative feelings that come up when something doesn't go right, she now says to herself, this will be great in my book. And I love that. And it made me kind of chuckle too, because I had just had like a rough morning and I was thinking to myself like, but I'm like, yes, she's right. She is so right. All these things, we all have our stories, right? We all have our stories. And I feel like sometimes what we put out on social media tends to be the happier stories, the filtered stuff. And that's fine. I think that's fine because I feel like it's the stuff that we want to maybe be associated with. We want to be associated with fun. People post our vacation photos. Whereas a book or even a podcast is where we can kind of share those secrets and, the things that we might not openly share with people on like social media platforms. So I love that. And I feel like it's great to, in a book format, to be able to create that platform for people to let other people know that they're not alone. And I actually interviewed one of the women that was in your book, Emma Farrick. And I remember she was telling me about it. She shared her story of, violence and how she overcame that and, all the plans that she has to be able to help others with that. So I think you're doing a wonderful job with that. So I have another thing that I wanted to chat with you about, which, you have these two businesses and, I feel like you probably help similar people, but probably not so much because I feel like with the book, you can help people who are not brand new business owners. So I would love for you to share with us how because you are a busy mom, you have two kids, how do you manage like running two businesses, a family, your personal life, like all the things while staying sane?
That's a great question. I kind of have this saying, like, if I'm going to live a full life, it's going to be a busy life. And I don't mean busy in the harried sense of like, oh, I'm so busy and I just can't get to that. But a full life is full of moments, right? So moments where we're connecting with other people, we're doing things. And some of that busyness actually includes downtime for myself because I am no stranger to self-care and to run two businesses, be a mom, be a volunteer at my church, be involved in my community. All of that takes me being at my best first and foremost. So back to that health thing that you were speaking to, I mean, we've got to get enough sleep and drink enough water. And for me, that looks like a lot of quiet time in the morning. I need just like some breathing space for my brain before I jump into everything. But it's really about being, again, intentional, just deciding, okay, today is this day, and here's what I have going on in this day today. And here's how I'm going to structure and order that. And then giving myself the flexibility to let some things fall by the wayside or just look differently than I expected them to. So, I want to cook dinner for my family. Does that mean it's always going to be this like gourmet from scratch meal? No, not all the time. Like sometimes I am microwaving pasta and that's just what it is. But I still made dinner. I sat down with my family. I connected with them over a hot meal. And that's the part that really matters to me. So it's just being able to be intentional with my time. And I will mention that I built my businesses up at different times. So it's not like I started with two businesses. I first started with my development consultancy and working with women there. And then as I got the hang of, what those women needed and the structure that worked for me and worked for them, I was able to automate a lot of different things and also just create a really loose framework. I don't want to say like a standardized template because everyone's getting something a little bit different out of that service because it's based on what they need. But I do have a loose framework of when we get together, what that's going to look like, what we might be addressing, and how I'm going to give them their deliverables and that sort of thing. And then born out of that kind of work and networking with other women like you, I released my own book and those women were like, you did this. And I know it's not what you do, but can you help me figure that out? And I got asked that enough times that I finally was like, okay, this can be a thing that I do. And so I stepped into the writing and publishing strategy side and developed that business. And I made them to go together. They serve women in really similar ways, just women at different parts of the journey. So because of that, the brain power that it takes from me is very similar. And I limit the number of clients that I'm willing to take on every quarter. And I limit the number of clients I'm willing to see in any given day. And I do that for good reason because I know that I have my own limits. I have my capacity. And if I get burnt out, then I'm no good to anybody, especially to myself or my family. And so I've just set those limits and I've priced accordingly. Less supply and more demand means you can raise your prices a little bit. So I can make the revenue that I'd like to make, but still have that capacity capped at a place that's comfortable for me to exist in.
Wonderful. That's such great advice. Yeah. So I think the number one thing to see there too is that, somebody who maybe didn't know you very well, who saw this episode and they saw, okay, Danielle runs two businesses. Wow. Like that's, I would never be able to do that, or, that's just impossible for me. And like you said, like you didn't magically just start two businesses, like out of the blue one day, right? Like you first built one up and then you built your second one. So I think it's nice to hear that too. It's like that, it's almost like a reality check. Like, we hear about all these people who have multiple businesses, multiple things that they run, but they probably didn't start everything at the same time. And there's probably support there as well, which nobody can get to that next level in their business. Usually like it's hard to move past like the 6-figure into multiple 6 figures without any support at all. Depending on how you are too, like even, I can't run my business without any support. I have 2 young kids and it's just, that would just not be fun.
Yeah, we need help. We're humans.
Exactly.
Also, neither of my businesses is perfect. Like a month might go by that I don't post on Instagram in one of them or both of them, honestly. It's one of those things. But I mean, Instagram isn't necessarily where I'm getting my clients from, right? It's a great place to interact with people and I enjoy it. So it is part of my business model. But I know that there are certain things in my business to prioritize. And number 1 is client service. Number 2 is networking and referral networking and collaborations. And then from there, it's the email newsletter and the social media and all that different stuff. And I think often we assume that all of that has to be perfect, that we're just like, to have a successful business, we are nailing it in all of those areas. And the more and more I connect with women at the 6-figure, 7-figure level, that is just not true. Like often we are not nailing it at all. And the ones that you do see that have that full system that works like a well-oiled machine is because they have multiple people in there supporting them. So you just have to know how to prioritize what is it that my business needs to function first and foremost. And then the rest of it, it's nice to have. It's nice to have like a social media plan and my posts roll out and everything's great. But sometimes that's just not the way it looks. And I'll just be more organic about it and like, oh, I have this thought. And so I'll post something real quick and let it be what it is. Not every painting is a masterpiece, and that's okay.
Exactly. I love that. Well, before we wrap up today, please let us know where people can go to connect with you if they want to learn more about either business, if they want to check you out and see what you're up to. What are the best places to connect?
Yeah, so my business development consultancy for women who are newer to business can be found at BeMyselfNow.com. And then the writing and publishing strategy can be found at ConfidentConcept.com. So that's singular, Confident Concept. And I'm on Instagram with both businesses. I'm on Facebook, Danielle Mendoza. But my website has ways to connect with me, and it has my social media links there as well.
Great. And you also have a podcast.
I do. Yeah. It's called Be Myself Now in Business. And that podcast is geared toward the women who would be right for the development consultancy. So anyone who is trying to figure out this business stuff, trying to figure out like, what do I really need? What do I do here? What is niching? What does that mean? How do I build a website? All that good stuff. I've got experts who've come on that podcast to talk about a lot of that. And it's just a great kind of crash course in all things business.
Yes, definitely. So we will have all those links. Danielle, thank you so much for being my guest today. Thank you for your time. And thank you for listening to this episode. And we'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Elevated Femmes movement. I would love to hear your thoughts on the podcast, so please leave us a review. If you know someone who could benefit from the episodes on the show, please share it with them. We need more women elevating to their highest potential, enjoying all the great things in life, having plenty of time freedom for their children and loved ones, while doing things smarter and not harder, and growing a business that improves, not consumes their life. To connect with me and download my free resources, please go to www.juliamhickman.com.